Fantastic. So I'm Pauline Heron from Development Discovery, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about the Twin Peaks Summit. And I'm delighted that I've actually got Jay Howard with me here today.
Thank you for having me.
And Jay has very kindly volunteered to come along and share some amazing information with you at the Twin Peaks Summit. So Jay, just tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are.
So I'm an auction manager and I work for Auction House London. Additionally to that, I have 3 degrees, so a degree in psychology, classics and law. I speak, read and write 12 ancient languages. I invest myself in property and have done so for the last 14-15 years. And I'm very passionate about what I talk about.
Wow, so there's loads and loads of stuff there Jay's got to share with us, and I know some things about his degrees as well, which hopefully he'll share with you at a later time. But the topics that you're going to be talking about at the event, you're going to be talking on 2 particular topics.
Yes.
So tell the audience, why do you think what you've got to share with them is important for property professionals, or indeed any professional?
The first talk is my auctions talk. And the reason I think that is important is because it's such an underutilised tool in property. People have so many misconceptions and believe so many myths about it that they're too afraid to approach it. So what I try and do in that talk is actually demystify a lot of the misconceptions that people have, and also give you a lot of insight into the higgledy-piggledy little bits in the background, little hints and tips that you can use to really kind of explore the auctions with a degree of comfort and accessibility. I also talk about underwriting, which I use as a big buzzword in the talk, which is something a lot of people don't know about in auctions, and which I will not explain in this talk because it will ruin everything for you. But it will change your lives if auctions is a means and method of sourcing or accessing property and investments that you want to go forward with.
And that for me, the whole auctions thing, it's interesting what you say about the myths and things, because I've got to say, limiting beliefs, one of my limiting beliefs is auctions scare me a little bit. Right. You know, I've never sold at auction. I've tried to buy a few times prior to auction, so the lots that I was going for, I tried to acquire them before auction, but actually they went to somebody else before auction, but I've never ever bid actually in there. And I know the couple of times I was in there, I was almost sitting on my hands because I was thinking, oh God, I might bid for something I don't want. So I'm really looking forward to the insider tips on that one.
So there's a little bit of strategy on how to increase your buying power at auction, and also how to bid at the auction itself.
Brilliant.
And without being too shameless, I'm also writing a book on auctions, which I'm hoping to publish in January, which will have a lot more detail, I hope. So fingers crossed for that.
Yeah, and I've heard about the book that's coming up, and that to me sounds brilliant as well. So hopefully you'll bring information at the event about how people can register for a copy of that in advance.
Absolutely, and
brilliant.
I'll also be bringing a part of a chapter which would be my chapter on exit strategies, which I'm putting into the book, which segues nicely into the second talk that hopefully I'll be doing, which is my talk on exit strategies, which is primarily focused on property itself and property investments, how to enter property and exit and things like that. But actually it is so much more than that. It is applicable to any situation, any strategy that you are approaching. It's all about thinking in reverse and providing yourself with multiple exits and multiple strategies that are win-win, or at least not losing or lose-lose. So there's a lot to take from that. It will be the first time I'm showing this talk to anybody. I'm really passionate about exits because the amount of people I speak to and approach, I know you're quite active on the property networking scene, I am too, and the amount of people I approach and they're talking, I'm like, well, why didn't you consider this and this? And I'm like, well, this is my strategy. I just do X. I go into a property thinking I'm doing this. Like, okay, but what if this doesn't work? He goes, well, then I panic. So don't panic. Plan for it in advance. But put yourself in a position where you're winning as far along the property's journey as you possibly can. And I think, although people have a strategy and have an exit in mind, you can play an exit until it doesn't work, but you can also have a second one that follows from that and still leaves you in a position of profit, or a position of, you know, not being in a negative situation. And I think so many mistakes can be made in haste, and it's just not worth it. I mean, definitely have a route that you use. I'm a big fan on having an investment strategy, having a plot, having an idea, having a roadmap so you don't lose yourself along the way. And an exit strategy gives you that. I mean, it's like if you take a wrong turn on a satellite navigation system, it will turn around and say, I'll take the third exit and circle back. Or have a plan B. Don't get lost in every single property you're interacting with has its own journey, and that is part of your larger journey within property. So make sure that you don't lose yourself along the way, and you grant yourself as many exits as possible, because your exits define your next entry, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So
yeah, and it's very much that, you know, what happens, and then what happens if it's X, then Y will happen, and if it's Z, then you might go back to A, which if you're in your normal strategy and you're familiar with that, then people are really comfortable with that. But if you're looking at something, as you say, happens untoward, then it's what do you do? And what you want to avoid is that panic and that firefighting situation. So, you know, for me, a lot of people have, as you say, one strategy, and that's what they work with. But you've got to be aware that opportunities are all around us, and you could, and especially if we tie it in with your other thing, you know, with your auctions, you could find something that you think is going to be really good for your strategy at auction, and then when you get it, for whatever reason, it's not. And you know, some of that comes down to due diligence, making sure you've done the due diligence in advance. But having property strategies, exit strategies, is really key. But also, as a business psychologist myself, and having worked with lots of businesses and growing businesses over the years, it's really important that you have an exit strategy right at the start of your business, whatever that business is. So are you planning on growing your business? And some property business are grown this way. So you're growing a business and a portfolio that you're going to sell on. It might be your exit strategy. The whole business might be sold on. It might be that you're building it for a legacy where you're going to step outside and somebody else is going to be taking it over. You know, it might be within family or whatever, but what is your exit strategy? Or are you going to be working in that forever? You know, and that could be your strategy as well, as, you know, actually I don't plan on selling it, I don't plan on leaving it, but you still have to have alternatives, because what if something happens to you that you can't carry on the way you are? And it's important, as Jay said earlier on, both with your property and with your business, that you start with the end in mind. So exit strategies is really, really important.
And as a kicker, it defines your entry. I mean, like you say, if you're building a property business and you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm never going to sell this. This is legacy for the children, the grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Then your entry is vitally important. Do you set it up as a trust? There are tax implications for that. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't remember all of them, but it depends. If it's discretionary, then every 10 years you pay 10% tax and all these other things. Do you set it up as a family office, which has unbelievable tax benefits and all these other things, but it's regulated? So you have to think carefully. If this is my end goal, how do I structure that in the most effective way? And even as you change through the process, I mean, with most businesses, you can umbrella off. So if the situation changes, you can set up an SPV or an umbrella arm that then deals with different areas of what you're doing, and it's a case of building that in from the very off, but you start at the end.
Absolutely. And just picking up on a couple of things there, you know, we will have tax specialists there, we will have specialists there talking about trust. So this event is going to be really about your whole business, There will be some strategy things, and Jay threw in a word there, SPV. If you don't know what that is, don't worry, we'll cover things like that at the event as well. So, Jay, with your particular talks, what sort of problems or things do you think people might have at the moment, or be going through at the moment, that you would be able to answer if they've got some problems going on?
I think if someone has a specific issue with a property that they're dealing with, then I think in terms of the exit strategy talk, we can go through a couple of examples of how I approach if I bought into a property for purpose X, and then X just isn't workable. I don't know, the planning laws change, or it becomes an Article 4 area if it's an HMO, or whatever it may be. Or I was looking at a commercial lease and I didn't realise that there was a stipulation on a certain element, maybe an external wall needs to be maintained and it's your responsibility rather than the tenant's. All of these different things, and I start looking at how I can not circumvent the problem, but how I can rectify the problem but also gain value at the same time. So my approach to exit strategies is, if exit strategy 1 doesn't work, which is always going to be your primary strategy, the thing you're comfortable with, once you step outside of that comfort zone, you need to add value. because if you're going to be selling that property or selling that business or selling something on, what you're doing is you're adding value to your buyer. And that's vitally important, because you're not the only person for most property journeys or most business journeys that will be interacting with that property or that business. So it's all a case of not just thinking about you as a person, because your business is a separate entity anyway,
absolutely,
but also thinking about how you are adding that value. Because adding value is everywhere, it means everything, and it changes the whole landscape. So if someone has a specific issue, I will be talking about, okay, this doesn't work, but how do you change this and add the value to it that then makes it attractive if you are looking to add value to something and then sell it on and do other things. Because we're not an all-in-one. No human being is. You can't be a HMO specialist, a developer, a single let landlord, someone who does title splits and all these different things. You may have the ability to do different things like that, and this is where I think joint venturing changes the world. I mean, back in the day it used to be called options, but you didn't work together in that capacity. So it's a case of actually making contacts with people and joint venturing. If you're outside of your depth, but you know that you need to walk away with profit, add that value, add a joint venture partner who may not be putting money into the deal, but maybe putting expertise, maybe putting knowledge in. And actually, a lot of people don't realise that knowledge and expertise is £1.50 to every pound. You can't value it in the same way. So that's what I'll be talking to people about, how to not perceive issues as problems, perceive them as ways to add value to whatever asset is you're dealing with.
Absolutely, and I think that's a real key thing, is about being solution focused, actually looking for, okay, so we've got a problem, how do we move on and get something else? And you mentioned about contacts, and that's one of my big things as well, about contacts and making these contacts and putting yourself in a position where you can make great contacts. And when you come to this event, think of it as a massive networking event as well, because there will be people in the room that could be finding you your next deal, could be bringing you your next joint venture partner with the expertise that Jay was talking about, or they might be a new investor. So, make the most of it from there. So if people were sort of thinking, well, it's a weekend, I don't know if I want to give up my weekend to come to an event like this, what would you say to people that are sitting on the fence at the moment?
There is no excuse. There never is. I mean, unfortunately, I'm the type of person where even this evening I'm going to a property event. I mean, I haven't seen my wife in 3 days. but she,
we might have to talk.
I know. But she knows I'm passionate about property, and this is what I do. And if you want to make a success of yourself, that you have to not don't even think about it as a sacrifice. Think about it as added value.
An investment in yourself.
An investment. You're going somewhere. You're adding value to yourself. You're probably adding value to your business. You may unknowingly be adding value by just turning up, and with properties you're dealing with already. You may have a problem property and thinking, oh gosh, I don't know how to exit this, or I haven't considered my tax situation properly. The people that are going to be there are going to give you the access to that knowledge and that insight. And there is no excuse not to at least consider going to a place where it's focused. It's one of those 9 till 9 situations, if you're lucky to leave at 9, where you'll be in a boiling pot with people who are maybe at different areas of property or at different levels of experience. That doesn't matter. Like you say, it's about creating a network of individuals that are trustworthy, that you can work with, that will build and add to your experience and your value as another person. So weekend schmeekend, turn up, do it. There really is no excuse to and it's, especially if you have a talent in property, or you have a skill, or you have an expertise, not exercising that talent, that skill, that expertise on a regular basis means that you are declining it, you are losing it. There is no reason to say, well, I'm a big property mentor, I know everything I need to know. Perfect. Then as a person like that, you still need to turn up to events like this.
And share it.
And share, of course.
That's the important thing to me, is about collaboration and sharing. And, I go, as Jay goes, to many, many events where actually the content that's there, we've heard and we maybe know already, but it's the people you meet, and you might go away with one nugget from one person that can make a massive difference to your business. So I would say, the real thing is put yourself in the position where you can learn, because as you say, we're always learning, we're always growing, and whatever your experience is, you can always learn something new. I learn something new nearly every day, and from the most unusual places. So let me ask you something completely different, Jay, then, just before we wind up, because because I've really enjoyed this talk. And guys, you know, you see this energy and this motivation and passion. There's going to be so many people at the event, and so to actually have that from other people that have got that energy is really motivating. But if I was able to get you, we're just across the road from Wembley Stadium here at the moment, which is where the event's going to be held. If I could get you a massive billboard out in Wembley Stadium for one of the next full houses where you could pass a message to the world, what would your message be?
I think my message would be, it will all be okay in the end, because it will. Things go wrong, things go right. You just if you can stay calm under pressure, or stay calm when everything around you is falling to pieces, it will all be okay in the end.
That's a fabulous message. And one of the ways to find that be okay in the end is to have a solution-focused approach and have as much information and knowledge and as many contacts as you can call on when things do go wrong. Okay, so build your network, build your knowledge, and as Jay says, things will be okay in the end.
Absolutely.
So if you'd like to join us at the Twin Peaks Summit, it's on the 3rd and 4th of November, and it's in the Novotel in Wembley, which is just down the road from Wembley Stadium. It's 2 full days, full of content with specialists like Jay, who have been kind enough to contribute their time to come along to it. And you can register for the event, and there are only limited places available, and they're going fairly fast, at twinpeaksummit.com. So twinpeaksummit.com, 3rd and 4th of November, and I look forward to seeing you there, and thank you very much for your time, Jay.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you all there as well. I'm really excited.
Thank you.